Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of Hair History. Today we are going to talk about the earlier part of the Middle Ages, roughly the 6th to 13th century. Let me begin by saying this period was a nightmare to research. There is very little primary source material from this time. After the fall of the Roman Empire, Europe fell into a period we now know and describe as the Middle Ages. A period spanning several centuries in between the more prosperous Classical Age on the one hand and Renaissance on the other. It was a tumultuous time marked by mass migration, deurbanization, population decline and warfare, and simply not that much survived from this time. The things, and by things I mean books, paintings, other depictions that we do have from this period still now, they don't very often deal with women's hairstyling, or not directly in any case, but there are some things that we can deduce from what we do have, and what we do actually have quite a bit of from this period is religious material. And it does in fact tell us a thing or two about women's hairstyling. So for one, it was considered very inappropriate and shameful for a woman to cut her hair. Shaving off a woman's hair was used as a form of punishment, and women with cut or shaved hair were not allowed to enter churches, which was obviously a huge deal back then. In fact, allowing a woman with shorn hair into a church was enough grounds to get a bishop expelled from his position. So yes, definitely not cutting the hair. And we can definitely see in many of the images that the women have very long hair. So something else we know is that the Bible dictates that married women cover up their hair. And this is indeed what most images of medieval women look like. Their hair is covered by veils fairly consistently throughout the early and high Middle Ages, although there are certainly differences according to, of course, region and the time period and fashions. Anyways, I spent several days in frantic and fruitless research regarding this time period for this episode of Hair History before deciding to call for help on Instagram and see if there are any medieval reenactors among my followers, which luckily there are. So I want to give a massive thank you to everyone who sent me messages and helped point me in the right direction and explained why they wear their hair the way they do at events. So truly thank you. This episode would not have been what it is without you guys. So we'll get to the iconic veils a little bit later, but let's start by talking about the unveiled hair of the unmarried young lady. So we have established that hair was best kept long, and that is definitely what we see in the images as well. Hair is always parted in the middle, down the center, and often loose, wavy and flowing, or braided into one or two braids. The hair could be held by a fillet or a band around the head, and then either braided or left loose. But braids actually seem to be the base of what veils are worn over as well. There is archaeological evidence suggesting that braids were sometimes coiled up into buns on the back of the head and secured with these hair pins or hair sticks. This is a deduction we can make from the position of pins found in graves in relation to the skulls that they are found under. Braids were supposedly also sometimes wound around the head for a simple and practical updo. So of course in the pre-hair elastic era, the ends of braids could be secured in different ways. One of the ways was with a wax or a gel. They could have used flaxseed, for example, is something that we might be familiar still with today. Or they could be tied off using some string or ribbon. Ribbons were very popular actually. In fact, there is even a style of braid where the ribbon is woven into the hair or wrapped around the hair to form a kind of braid-like structure. This was a popular style starting from the second quarter of the 12th century, and this is actually the style that I demonstrated in my first Hair History of the Early Middle Ages, I think it was called, Hair History videos. It's a really fun look, very simple to do, highly recommend trying that out. But now let's take a look at the veils. So of course veils came in many different shapes, sizes, styles and materials. And what women wore depended entirely on the fashion of the time, their social status, and the wealth that they had available to them. The most common material that was used for veils is linen, which in and of itself comes in many different qualities and weights. So you could have fine linen or a coarser linen. The veils could be square, rectangular, circular, oval, semicircular, and they could be wrapped and pinned in countless different ways. Again, according to the fashion and fancy of the period. So underneath the veil, women often wore a base layer that the veil could be pinned onto in order to secure it. So this could either be a simple cap or a fillet, which would have been a strip of fabric tied around the head. So the 13th century saw a rise in the wimple, which is this thing right here. It's a veil that is worn under the chin that covers up the neck. And to achieve this, women would either wrap the kerchief, which is the top layer of the veil, I guess, around the chin to create a kind of wimple, or they would use a separate piece that could be more elaborately decorated or just more elaborate in style. So outdoors during the colder seasons, a warmer veil of wool was often worn over the kerchief and the wimple. Indoors as well, by the way. Another popular way of dressing the hair in the 13th century was using a hairnet, a barbette, which is that typical characteristic chin strap, and a higher fillet. And with this style, the fillet was actually pinned to the barbette as opposed to the other way around, which is the case when you use the fillet and the wimple combo. Many words here. I'm going to demonstrate everything in a bit. In fact, let's do that right now. Now that we have the theory down, we know what period we're dealing with, let's try some of the early and high medieval veil styling. I'm going to start by, of course, parting my hair down the center and then pulling all of it back to create a braid in the center back of my head that is going to be the base of the hairstyle that I wear underneath the veil. So I am going to just twist that into a simple bun at the nape of my neck and secure it with this hair fork, which is not accurate, but the closest thing I could find. So it looks a little something like this, nice and tucked out of the way. So let's get started. I am going to use a strip of fabric that I have here as a sort of makeshift fillet. Again, it's not very accurate, but it works, serves the purpose it's supposed to. For the first style, I'm going to use a long rectangular veil, and I'm going to drape one of the short sides over my head. Make sure the folds are tucked away, or kind of the edges are folded around my face so that it is nice and snug. Then I'm going to wrap the long end around my head and tuck it in at the front again here. This is a very simple early style that you see a lot in paintings and illuminations. Very easy to do and should hold without pins if you tuck it nice and securely. For the second style, I'm going to place the veil over my fillet in the center, and I'm going to then take a pin on each side of my temples to secure this to the fillet. And this is just a super simple basic style of wearing a veil. And you can also do something similar, but instead of pins, you can secure the veil with a band or a circlet. Again, mine is not very historically accurate, but you get the idea. Alrighty, a wimple style. So for the wimple, I'm going to use a smaller rectangular piece of fabric, which I'm going to drape under my chin and then again pin just above my temples. And then place the veil on top, and I'm again just placing it with the center on the center of my head, of the long side. And again pinning everything to that fillet, and that should look something like this. And then the last style, okay, so this one is technically a little bit later, 14th century, but I'm not planning on showing you more veil styles in the 14th century, and I really wanted to show you this one. So I'm gonna tie one of the short sides around my head, then I'm gonna fold it, so bring the other short side over forward again and pin that to the fillet, and that creates this kind of double folded veil style that I really love. I think this looks fantastic. Alright guys, that is all that I have for you today. The good news is we have a lot more source material from the 14th century onwards, as well as much more exciting hairstyles that are actually visible and uncovered. So we're not leaving the Middle Ages quite yet in this series, and I really look forward to filming the next episode. So I really hope you enjoyed this one as well. If you did enjoy, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for lots more videos. in the hair history series, but also other beauty, fashion, sewing and lifestyle content. If you would like to support me through Patreon or my merch store, there are links in the description box below. Thank you so much for your support. There is another video here that I think you might also enjoy. You can go watch next. Thank you so much for watching once again, guys, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!